We'll talk with pro-life leader Father Frank Pavone, the National Director for Priests for Life. Plus, we're joined by Steve Aden, the Chief Legal Officer for Americans United for Life. And we'll have the news you need to know Monday, April 4th, 2022. Good evening and welcome to CenterPoint. I'm Doug McElway. Tonight, we're going to focus on what is easily the most important issue of our time, life. Thousands of lives are being wiped out in Ukraine with no end in sight to that war. And for more than 2 years now, we've kept close track of how to save lives from the spread of COVID. We hear about the increasing number of lives being taken by increases in crime and even an increase in highway deaths. But what is easily forgotten in all of that are the nearly 900,000 lives taken by abortion each and every year, lives of those who are least able to fend for themselves. And tonight we have two of the most active national figures fighting for the unborn. Joining us tonight, pro-life leader Father Frank Pavone and the most active pro-life attorney in the country, Steve Aden. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Since we have no oppositional voice here, I'm going to play that role for some of this question to better elucidate our audience about the arguments they heard, that the Supreme Court heard in the Mississippi case, and what decision they may or may not come to when we expect a decision, perhaps in late June. First of all, our viewers here at the TBN network are fiercely loyal to Donald Trump, not because of his personal peccadillos or his bravado or the way he ran his life or some of his mannerisms, but because, more than anything, because of his Supreme Court picks. We're talking about Justices Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Coney Barrett. Each of those three had tremendous reverence for what is the Latin term stare decisis. In plain English, that means precedence, Supreme Court precedence. They believe in letting established law stand. Roe v. Wade is established law for over 50 years. Why shouldn't it stand?
Well, it's hardly established, Doug. It's one of the least established precedents in American law. The U.S. Supreme Court has reconsidered it, rejiggered the test, applied it in different ways many times, and scholars, even judges on the court, have criticized it as unworkable. It's a mess. Nobody really knows what it means. The last time the court attempted to set out a standard under Roe was Planned Parenthood versus Casey, and they said that an abortion regulation was unconstitutional if it imposed an undue burden on abortion access in a state, but nobody really knows how much of a burden is an undue burden. So the case is ripe for overturning by the U.S. Supreme Court's own standard, and that is that it is completely unsettled, completely unworkable. It's time for the court to throw it out, and we hope the court does so in the Dobbs case.
Father Frank, you want to add to that?
You know, one of the things you see in the various arguments that both the state of Mississippi and the various friends of the court, including our group, Priests for Life, have made is that not only is Roe v. Wade unconstitutional and immoral, but it has now become obsolete. And this ties into what my friend Stephen was just saying, that you look at the developments in science, you look at the developments in the law, you look at the developments in culture, and we are not today anywhere near where we were at the time Roe v. Wade was heard and decided between 71 and 73. Women, for example, have many, many more options to pursue their pregnancy and the birth of their child, and at the same time pursue their educational and career goals. They have many more options once that child is born if they feel they can't raise the baby. Safe haven laws, for example, which was brought up during the oral arguments in this case. Science, we know much more about the unborn child now than we've learned more in the last 50 years than we knew from the beginning of human history. And ironically, this is the very period where we have deprived them of protection. Law, science, and also culture have changed to make it much more favorable for these moms in unexpected pregnancies to see their way through without having their child killed.
Father Frank, you just talked about science. One of my favorite Winston Churchill quotes, and I wanted to use it in this interview, so I'll go ahead and use it right now, is he said, and I quote, "Were it not that Christianity is sheltered in the strong arms of science, the science against which it had vainly struggled, the civilization of modern Europe might fall as fell the civilization of ancient Rome. To that point, the pro-life movement is embracing science more than ever because of great advances, as you mentioned, in neonatal care and in the treatment of premature infants at a younger and younger and younger age.
It's true.
No, you're absolutely right.
We're now living at a point where children's first pictures are their pictures in the womb, right? And we have fetal surgery, and it's an amazing, amazing time when science has no question whatsoever that our newest patient is the unborn child.
Stephen, you wanted to speak.
No, that's absolutely true. Life begins at conception. That's a scientific fact. Embryology textbooks confirm that. The science is completely on the pro-life side. We know exactly how the baby in the womb develops. We can see through 3 or 4D imaging the baby begin to suck its thumb, to smile. There's a heartbeat as early as 4 to 6 weeks. A lot of laws are striving to protect babies in the womb from the time that a heartbeat is detectable. And we hope that those laws are upheld, and that even before that, that life at conception will be protected. There's a groundswell of strong support for life in the womb, because we can now see that life in the womb in a way that we could not see when Roe versus Wade was decided in 1973.
You make a very strong case to our viewers. There is a whole other half of the country, or maybe a little less than half of this country, who are not persuaded by that argument. We're talking about the Planned Parenthood crowd and the people who believe in a woman's right to choose. I've often thought that phrase is a terrible euphemism. It's very much like what the military uses as the term collateral damage to describe the slaughter of innocents. But their polling, the Planned Parenthood crowd, suggests that they are in the majority in this country. I know that you have polls which cite that you are in the majority. Oftentimes these questions raise down to the methodology of the polling and also how individual questions are posed on any one poll. What are your thoughts about that? Who's winning the abortion fight in this country right now?
Well, I think that the pro-life side is obviously winning culturally. There are more and more laws passed in the states to protect life every year, despite Roe versus Wade. Those laws are going earlier and earlier in gestational age, back to heartbeat at 4 to 6 weeks, and even earlier than that. Congress is completely in the game. Americans United for Life was privileged to file a friend of the court brief in the U.S. Supreme Court's Dobbs case on behalf of 228 senators and congressmen who told the U.S. Supreme Court it's time for Roe to go. Clearly, aside from culture and aside from the current administration, the pro-life tidal wave is taking over the country, and that includes, as you mentioned, the 3 U.S. Supreme Court picks that President Trump had, who are all passionately pro-life in their own views, and who also know a bad precedent when they see it. They know a precedent that is not rooted in history, text, or tradition of the Constitution, as the state of Mississippi told the U.S. Supreme Court. And I don't think that they will be afraid to throw this case out and allow the states and the people to do what the Constitution empowered them to do, which is protect human life.
The 3 justices that we talked about, the 3 Trump picks, Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, and Kavanaugh, also have a deep reverence for states' rights. Do you expect this to be a piecemeal decision that leaves the Mississippi law intact but allows pro-choice states to leave their laws intact? Father Frank, why don't you start with that? Let's let Father Frank weigh in first here.
Well, what we have been saying, the other side is already complaining, oh, the court is going to take away a woman's right to abortion. We don't expect any such thing. What we expect the Supreme Court to do is to say, let legislators legislate. I don't think that most of the justices, especially those appointed by President Trump, want to legislate. They want to simply decide cases. So in that case, sure, New Jersey just passed a very extreme pro-abortion law. Maryland is trying to do so. They can still do what they are doing. But the difference is this. The legislators are not going to be able to hide behind the robes of the judges. Many legislators are content to say, hey, listen, I'm against abortion personally, but it's out of my hands. The court took it out of my hands. We can't prohibit it. Well, hopefully Dobbs will take away that excuse. And what we will say then is, okay, to the other side, Planned Parenthood crowd, as you said, Doug, we'll say to them, make your case. If you think it's okay to dismember and decapitate these babies, make your case to the voters and to the legislators. And if you can persuade them that that's okay to do, well, then you can pass your laws accordingly. But if we make our case better, and we're convinced that our case is more persuasive, then those states will be free to protect those unborn children, just like so many states want to do already.
Gentlemen, hold on to that thought. Much more to come. We'll be right back.